Atmospheric entry complete. Extend the wings.
The story of Star Fox's latest outing is one we've seen before, both because it's literally a remake of 1997 Star Fox 64, but also because it follows a familiar formula of so many recent reimaginings like it. More than just a fresh coat of paint slapped onto one of my favorite childhood games, it introduces a rewarding challenge mode, slightly improved multiplayer options, and a bevy of brand new, well-made cinematics that take a deeper dive into Star Fox lore. Add all of those elements to an original game that still largely holds up 3 decades later, and it makes for the best 20 or so hours of Star Fox I've ever played. Here's hoping this is the start of a whole new generation for the series.
You know, when your dad was in charge, he would...
Ancient history, Peppy. This is my Star Fox, and we're doing things my way.
Let me start where most people will, the main campaign. Star Fox games have always had a relatively unique structure where a fairly short series of levels are full of branching paths and alternate exits, meaning you'll never see all 16 stages, or even most of them, on a single playthrough. A full 7-mission run might only last an hour or less, but it took me about 10 hours to see all the different paths and earn every medal on both the normal and expert difficulties. Some may worry that the shorter campaign might feel lacking, but while it's not necessarily a Thanksgiving dinner that will leave you stuffed, there was still more than enough meat on the bone to keep me entertained across multiple runs.
Too bad we have to scrap this thing. It's incredible.
Returning to these recognizable stages on the Switch 2 was a thrill, and I was amazed by how great everything looked as my muscle memory returned after all these years. Everything from the reflections on the waters of Corneria to the kaleidoscopic wormholes you travel through look fantastic, which makes identifying any of the alternate path objectives easier than ever. The revamped soundtrack stands out as well. It perfectly captures the vibe of each location and keeps every campaign run brisk and interesting. The brand new fully voiced cinematics also really help bring the entire cast to life. There's a unique cutscene between each stage of the campaign, and unlocking an alternate route will even give you a different version of that cinematic when selecting the mission you'll take on next. These scenes are weighted more towards the war against the big bad Andross, but they also help deepen your understanding of and endear you to each member of the Star Fox team, even Slippy.
I've got you covered, Fox.
Fleshing out their personalities to a level the original never did.
We're professionals. We know better than to scratch the paint.
Conversations with Slippy show his love of engineering and how much work he's put into the Arwings, while the oldest member of the team, Peppy, confidently displays his years of wisdom by offering insight on why a planet might be a target for Andross. Falco's nonchalant bravado and cockiness comes through with every voice line.
Come on, Fox. I say we go dodge some space junk at Sector Z.
And the cool and confident Fox now has an added bit of wittiness.
Rob's got the commanding officer of the Corneria Defense Force on hold.
You don't say. Old General Pepper himself hailing our humble band of mercenaries?
Star Fox may look like a simple on-rails shooter on the surface, but it's one of those games where the more you dive into it, the more you'll find hidden underneath. Each stage hides extra objectives in plain sight. You might need to take down enemy groups quickly to earn power-ups, or fly through certain structures to spawn new enemies and boost your score. Its missions reward replayability. Finishing a level is just the start, and pushing for high scores is the truly rewarding challenge. Uncovering hidden bonuses for figuring out which paths earn you medals takes time, especially for newcomers, but it provided me with a special sense of achievement I often miss in modern games.
That'll put a damper on Andross's plans.
Its deceptive depth goes beyond the goals you need to achieve or alternate routes you can discover, and into the actual action as well. Movement and aiming feel snappy and great, and your limited but effective arsenal of weapons makes it easy to always figure out which one will get the job done best in every situation, putting the onus on your timing and execution.
Oh look, they decided I'm the biggest threat.
I loved rediscovering which enemy in each group I should lock my charged shots onto in order to maximize my bonus points, which enemy waves to use one of my limited bombs on, and where all the hidden power-ups were tucked away. The best addition is the challenge mode, which adds tricky new objectives to each stage that could be challenging your boost and flight skills to beat Falco through the obstacles towards the end of Corneria, or simply defeating a boss within a time limit, or destroying enough of a certain enemy or item in the environment. It took me roughly 8 hours to complete all the challenges, and there are a few inherent strengths to this mode, as well as one small oversight that I think could have elevated it further. Starting with the good. Challenge mode is a great way to replay any stage you've already beaten and practice it to discover all the hidden elements, memorize enemy patterns, and optimize your path to achieve the highest score you can. Some of these challenges can be tough or require zen-like patience, such as giving your itchy trigger finger a break to make sure you only hit a boss's weak point and not the massive rotating shield that regularly covers it.
It's a trick. Don't let your guard down.
Admittedly, it can be frustrating when one mistake on that boss means you failed the objective, forcing you to restart the entire level if there are no checkpoints to fall back on. Thankfully, moments like that are mostly relegated to the expert level challenges, which are explicitly there to test your mastery of the Arwing, so they should have some level of pushback. Ultimately, I really liked working my way through all of the challenges, but given this mode is already a completely new addition to the original game, I do wish it had pushed things a little bit further than it did. For example, I would have loved a boss rush mode, alternate scenarios like allowing you to play as another team member during the missions where Fox is in the Landmaster tank, or anything else the extremely creative minds working on it could have come up with. The challenges we got are fun, but they do mostly boil down to a fairly straightforward task on a familiar level.
Full steam ahead!
The other major inclusion is the multiplayer battle mode, though I've spent the least amount of time here so far. A few hours of bot matches and 1 half-hour PvP session online, which was hosted by Nintendo ahead of release. It's a more compact but enjoyable experience, though it might lack enough content to keep me coming back for extended periods of time. Multiplayer boils down to a 4v4 deathmatch across only 3 possible maps, each with its own set of events that occur at randomized locations. Corneria has you competing to capture specific points, Ficina makes you blast and collect meteorites, and Sector Y asks you to deliver cargo captured from space pirates. Each objective occurs multiple times per match as time permits, and grants a large point bonus to the team that completes it first. There are also a ton of new power-ups to pick up that can excitingly turn the tide in your favor. For example, the Plasma Blast is a giant far-reaching laser that melts enemy pilots, while the Smart Mines home in on enemies that dare cross your path too closely. These maps are fine, but the thing that puzzles me about battle mode is why there are only 3 total and why each map's event is locked to that particular stage. There are 16 levels in the campaign that you are encouraged to play repeatedly, and less than a quarter of them made it to battle mode, which seems like a major oversight. Nintendo has been pretty good about adding post-launch content to its other games in recent years, so I'm hoping Star Fox gets the same treatment in time, because I do want to play this multiplayer more. But in its current form, it's doomed to just the occasional match with friends before the inevitable swap to Mario Kart World or Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The final 2 additions worth mentioning are the Holoviewer and the Cosmetic Unlockable System. The Holoviewer is Star Fox's version of a bestiary or logbook that offers a much deeper look into the lore of its characters, planets, and enemies, as well as the events like the Venom incident, which was when Fox's dad, James, sacrificed himself to save Peppy. It's just a simple menu with these details, but it's still a nice addition to a series that isn't really known for diving too deep on the backgrounds of a world and characters I've always wanted to learn more about. The cosmetic system, on the other hand, is hit and miss. The unlockables mostly include banners, emblems, and VTuber-esque avatars that let you control the head, eyes, mouth, and even tongue movements of a specific character if you have a USB camera attached. The avatars are great in theory, but they come with some weird limitations. There are 25 character options, but you are limited to just the 8 playable members of Team Star Fox and Star Wolf while in a multiplayer match. My excitement dropped when I realized you can only use avatars like Cat, Bill, and Rob64 on the menu screen, or while playing single player separately in a game chat party. In addition to game chat, the Switch 2 does bring a few other benefits such as mouse controls, game share functionality, amiibo support, and the ability to play co-op by splitting the flight and aiming controls between 2 players. But none of these amount to much. Mouse controls technically give you better control over where to aim, and they were particularly useful in the pair of missions where you're on the ground in Landmaster, but outside of experimenting to see how they feel, I found myself U-turning back to the Pro Controller before long, as I do with most games that offer mouse controls on the Switch 2. Meanwhile, amiibo support is limited to the Fox, Falco, and Wolf amiibo, which only unlock a handful of character-specific emblems and banners, so sorry for anyone hoping to tap them for a free laser or bomb power-up in a time of need. And while playing co-op with my partner was an interesting experience, it's not one I'd sign up for in the long run, though I think it could be a perfect way for parents to introduce their kids to the world of Star Fox. Despite knowing nearly all Star Fox 64 shortcuts and secrets for close to 30 years now, this remake's impressive coat of paint and compelling new cutscenes made me smile like I just did my very first barrel roll. Finding hidden routes to unlock different stages or small optimizations to push my score sky high is still much deeper than it first appears, keeping the brief campaign runs fun across multiple playthroughs. And while the new challenge mode and revamped multiplayer don't go quite as far as I'd like in terms of content or creativity, they are still amusing ways to shake up things once you've exhausted every alternate route in the campaign. Given the decade-long drought since the disappointment that was Star Fox Zero in 2016, Nintendo was wise to return to Star Fox's best game in order to revitalize this 33-year-old series and has reached a new peak for it in doing so. Hopefully this is just the beginning for Fox McCloud because Nintendo has proven the Arwing isn't out of style quite yet.
Guess we'll have to wait for the rematch.
Reviews director Tom Marks with our Star Fox reviewer Jada Griffin to talk a little bit more about her tastes in the series and favorites and all that jazz. Jada has been around IGN for a long time, done lots of mostly action game reviews, I feel like, Dynasty Warriors Origins, Blades of Fire, stuff like that. But big Star Fox fan, so let's start there. What's your history with the series? Like, why did you want to review this one?
I was a Sega kid growing up, but I got the N64 as a child, and Star Fox 64 was one of those earlier games that my parents bought for me, and I just fell in love with the game, the characters. Then I was able to play as Fox in Smash. From there, my love for the series blossomed. You know, we had great follow-ups with Star Fox Adventures. I played a ton of multiplayer in Command and Assault on the GameCube and 3DS with friends. I wasn't the biggest fan of Zero that we got later in the lifespan, like I think most people were, and Guard, whatever that was supposed to be. But, you know, I've just really dug Star Fox all around it. You know, obviously I played the remaster back on the 3DS 15 years ago, and this is now the remake or remaster remake from 30 years ago. So yeah, this has been a great kind of like full circle moment for me.
Yeah, it is funny to think about that Star Fox has been so in and out that probably most people just know him as a Smash Bros. Character more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't even end up going back and playing the original until it was on the Switch in the eShop. So it took me a while to get to that point. But
and that's the Super Nintendo one.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a very funny series that way in terms of kind of how it's come and gone. So what do you think? Before this one, what was your favorite of the series and why? Was it just 64?
Oh, it was 64, hands down. I also have a very sweet spot for Assault just because of the hours I spent in multiplayer with friends, and they just had a little bit more. There's just more to do in that game compared to 64, obviously. So that one also really kind of took a lot of my time. But 64, I think, is hands down. I think it's the best of the series before Star Fox. Now, just Star Fox. They got to fix the name convention because it's going to be so confusing in 10 years when we're all talking about which Star Fox. But yeah, 64 is definitely my favorite of the bunch.
You mentioned Zero. So let's talk a little bit about kind of... Star Fox has been in this funny thing where they've tried to resurrect it a couple of times and nothing has quite hit in exactly the same way. What do you think it is about those games that just didn't quite make them click compared to the originals? What do you think they were missing?
It's weird because when I think about Star Fox, the thing that I find most enjoyable is the replayability of those games. The fact that every time you go through a stage, you can find one little extra spot where you can improve your score or a better way to take out a boss's weak point faster. There's so many, it's nature of being an on-rails shooter just kind of gives you that aspect of control and kind of like old school, like almost arcade games. And so that's something I really, really love about the franchise. When it comes to things like Star Fox Zero, even Assault, where it was good, it had good foundations, but just kind of shaky on the extra stuff. I think the extra stuff they've tried with some of the older games just wasn't as polished, maybe I don't know if that's the right word, because Nintendo products are generally very polished, but I feel like it wasn't integrated into the formula as well as we've gotten with the core, like original Star Fox 64, and And then I'd say even Command is a little bit more adheres to the standard protocol of the games, but obviously Command has its own eccentricities, I would say.
So it's less that they were like doing something different wrong and more just that like they weren't doing the thing as well. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think they
fair.
were. Yeah, it's tough because there was a lot that went wrong for Star Fox Zero specifically.
Sure.
The Wii U era was not a great era for Nintendo.
How dare you?
How dare I make those bold claims? I remember playing Star Fox Zero at an E3, one of the last E3s before it closed down, before they stopped having them, and I remember waiting in this long line. I was like, oh, this is going to be epic. This is going to be so cool. And I finished the mission so quick, and I was like, that was not worth the 3-hour line I waited in to play this game. Like, it was okay, but it was not the level of Star Fox I was expecting. And so I think that kind of, for me, also kind of was like, the writing was on the wall for me at that point, even after just that quick demo session for me personally.
Well, Jada, thank you so much for chatting with us a little bit more about your history with the series and all that jazz. There's nothing quite like Star Fox, although there are some indie contenders coming out in this year as well. But in the meantime, if you want some more Nintendo throwback games, we just had a review of The Adventures of Elliot, The Millennium Tales, and then before that, Mina the Hollower, which we gave a 10. And for everything else, stick with IGN.